Mr. Hurd.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
My colleague from California basically implied that you've been supportive of President Trump's campaign. Is that correct?
I'm having a very hard time hearing you, sir.
My colleague from California indicated that you were supportive of the president's campaign. Is that correct?
I actually donated to the inaugural committee in order to secure tickets.
So let me ask this question. Did you participate in or overhear any conversations about the potential information collected by Ukrainians on the Bidens would be used for political gain?
Did I personally hear that? No.
Did you participate in any conversations when this was being discussed?
Not that I recall.
In your statement on page 5, you said Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Then you also recounted your conversation with President Trump where he says, I want nothing, no quid pro quo. How do you reconcile these two statements?
They're hard to reconcile. We were working along Mr. Giuliani's direction for a period of time. We still didn't have a White House meeting. Aid was now held up. There were lots of reasons being given by various people as to why those weren't moving forward. And I finally got exasperated by receiving Ambassador Taylor's latest text, and I just picked up the phone. I got through the president, and I said, what do you want?
Sure. Are you aware of any specific conversations Mayor Giuliani had with the president between your May 23rd conversation and September 11th, 2019?
I don't recall if Mayor Giuliani, when I was directly talking to him, either through a conference call or on a direct call, whether he quoted from the president or said, I just talked to the president. Most of the communications, as I said, went through Ambassador Volker initially. So I don't want to opine on what may or may not have been said.
On page 11 of your testimony, you said Mr. Giuliani had been communicating with Ukrainians without our knowledge. I'm assuming you're believing you Mr. Volker, and Ambassador Taylor. Which Ukrainians was Rudy Giuliani communicating with?
Well, I was specifically referring to this text that I received from Ambassador Volker, where Mr. Giuliani was apparently telling the Ukrainians something that frustrated Ambassador Volker.
Sure. So who specifically? Right. We know that
Mr. Lutsenko, the old prosecutor.
And do you think Mr. Lutsenko has any gravitas within the Zelensky regime?
I don't know. He was the old attorney general and
ultimately got fired in August when the new group came in. Okay, so we know Rudy Giuliani has met with Mr. Yermak on the fringes of meetings in, I think it was Spain. Do you know any other Ukrainian official within the Zelensky regime that Mayor Giuliani was meeting with?
I don't know who Mr. Giuliani was meeting with.
Had you had any conversations with Ukrainian officials within the Zelensky regime that came to you and said, hey, I just got off the phone with Giuliani, what the hell is he talking about?
I don't recall.
Would that be normal? In all your interactions with ambassadors and heads of states and governments, if there is some element of the U.S. government that they have spoken to, isn't it usually the step that they come in, talk to the ambassador, try to clarify what that statement was? Is that a true characterization of how elements of diplomacy work?
I think that's a reasonable possibility. Things work all kinds of different ways these days.
When you met with President Zelensky after the July 25th phone call, so you met him on July 26th, did the investigations or Joe Biden come up in that meeting?
I don't recall Joe Biden coming up.
Was there any frustration expressed to you by the phone call that happened the day before?
No, as I testified, everyone said it was a good call.
Is, in your opinion, your interactions with President Zelensky, is he a straight shooter, is he a liar, or is he a liar?
He impressed me greatly, and that's why I wanted to get he and President Trump together as soon as possible.
And so when he makes express statements, you tend to believe them?
Yeah, with my limited interaction with him, he seems very honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I hope you make your plain.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd.
I yield back.